So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Let's make some silence first. Learn to let go at all times. Let go of that which you call the past. Let go of that which you call the future. And by remaining here, it is not that which you call the present moment, where things appear to be happening. It is the present space of silence. That space which remains as you abstract from everything else. And as you find this place more and more, this is where you stay. And if by any chance storms take you away from this place, you struggle to come back and to remain. So once again, good morning, everyone. So this which I've spoken about is very important because there's this idea that present moment is a moment in time as related to past and future. So those who say they are in the now, observing the now, usually this means they are observing what is happening at this moment. And this has nothing to do with the now. Clinging to the now, staying in the present moment, means to touch, to connect to that body of silence, that eternal stillness, which is unchangeable and ever present. And as you are focusing on what appears to be happening, this has nothing to do with the present moment. It's like going through a river. In front, you see the waterfalls and probably a very big accident, and you're just observing. It will change nothing. Eyes closed, eyes open. So staying in the present moment, it means by abstraction from what appears to be happening, from the outside of the body, from the inner part of the body, or that intimate space of perception. The abstraction from all of that allows you to tap into that present moment, to that body of silence slash stillness. This is staying in the now. But for this to be possible, preparation, work is required, because everything which is there in what you call yourself is programmed, seems to have a life of its own. It's happening, it's going, whatever that means. And apparently it is also what they say unconscious. If you don't tend to this, well, you may touch a little bit of silence, but that will not make much of a difference. You see, a farmer may have very good seeds in his hands to plant the soil. But does the farmer rushes into his planting just by throwing the seeds everywhere? Of course not. It would be a waste, a complete waste. First, he takes care of the land. He takes the weeds, bushes, he prepares the soil, makes it more rich with organic matter, whatever. Then he puts the seeds and he puts water. So this is more or less the same. So usually seekers, either they have short-term strategies for the highest result, or long-term strategies without the urgency for the result. Well, if we look at one and the other, they are more or less different sides of the same coin, and probably doomed to fail. The best is to have long-term strategies, but with a short-term mindset for results. Because short-term strategies, they are aimed at doing big things with the idea that it's going to solve everything. And this doesn't work like that. Because, yes, in the beginning, there are the big things that you have to take care of. But as the practice becomes more mature, it's more and more these subtle aspects of the practice. It becomes more closer, more closer, more closer. And it's about details, keeping the details in place as you intensify your practice. And if you have these long-term strategies, but not the mindset for short-term results, you will tend to slack your efforts. And you will not be able to have this attention to details. You'll just take care about the big aspects. And yes, you have time, so why bother? And it takes a lot of preparation and work to make the mind suitable for this anchoring into silence, this tapping into the present moment and remaining there. And the real work starts when it becomes about demolishing what is there. In terms of personality, it is something built. You have worked on it for years and years and years. Knowingly, unknowingly, doesn't matter. So you have been working on it, improving it as a social tool. And more or less, you bring the same mindset because there's this idea that there's something missing here and I have to bring to make it complete, full, perfect. And this mindset continues into the spiritual quest. And it has to be put aside, reversed. Because this brings a continuous quest for peace. And this means um, circumstances that lack confrontation, that lack um, friction, some sort of friction. So this peace is not really this burst of love, of intensity. It's about absence of friction. So you tend to go to your spiritual practices and you try to build on top of what is there. There's the personality, and you start to build on top of it. So this means you're looking for improvement in this kind of assessment. If it is maintaining that peace and improving it, or is it threatening that peace? And this is a very big blockage. So whatever you do from this mindset, you're not moving forward, so to speak. You're just preparing and preparing and preparing for that moment that it is possible for you to change that mindset and enter to the part which is about demolishing, 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 demolishing. And it is difficult because the sense of identity is connected to that structure. So beyond the words, beyond the mental concepts, as it starts breaking those foundations, it seems identity is breaking with it, breaking along with it. And there must be some kind of a strong structure to support this. And if it's not there, it has to be developed during that process or it breaks. But that's when the real work begins. And when all that is there to be demolished gets demolished, then something new starts to get built. Not exactly in the same lines that what was there previously, but something by far more suitable. I will answer that in a moment. And this is difficult. There's a natural rejection towards that process. It's a gut rejection. So, to be able to go through that, you have to prepare yourself to have that mindset. And it starts whenever you accept this to be a reality, that whatever is there presently is not suitable for the spiritual path, and you surrender yourself to the forces, to the spiritual forces, so that they can break whatever is there. And the way it happens is through intense spiritual practice. And as you persist, the more intense it becomes, the more deeper these demolitions can go. Intense and steady. Because if it's not steady, it's just that mindset of short term results. So it can invest intensely for a short period of time and then it changes to something else. So it is the intensity that sets everything up. And the mindset has to be in the right place to allow the demolition. Because if it's not, if you're still basing your evolution or whatever you're doing by the presence of peace and silence, then when it starts, you will think it is wrong because silence will become very less, confusion will increase, and your mind will not be able to help. That's because it doesn't play that role at all. But with that mindset, you will allow and you will continue despite the difficulties, despite the suffering arising, despite everything. And after a while of going through All of this, if it is continuous in a steady way, you will start to see slight changes. A fragrance, perfume, a little bit. And this means the building process is beginning. Still, they go on both hand in hand, but something is changing. But this process, this initial stage, the majority runs from this. They don't allow it. They fear it because they haven't developed the right mindset for it. They are still with a worldly attitude, a worldly mindset of self preservation, of maintaining that peace, of finding immediate pleasure and joy, all of these things. They don't understand that as the farmer, that field which was there, built by nature, with all that nature deemed the best, with all different plants, bushes, trees, whatever, that land was not adequate, suitable for the plantation that the farmer wants to do. So he has to destroy all of that to make his own crop. So there was a question somewhere here. Hello, sir. I'm procrastinating on a high level, and after the day, at night, I realize that I wasted my day. I try a lot to be present, but I do overthinking all the time. Well, if you take what is there for granted, like the farmer, let's go back to the farmer again. If he looks at the field full of weeds and all those wild trees and all of that, and he takes that, oh, this is where I have to do my plantation, then he will be just wasting time, wasting good seeds, wasting and wasting and being frustrated, and nothing happens. So I've talked about this procrastination. It's a very famous word in the spiritual sense. But like I said, there is no procrastination. So you use this word when you're delaying something which you know is important. But in fact, there is no procrastination. What happens is, despite you knowing that something is more important, you are giving more importance to other things. So you are making your priority other things, even if it is avoiding the spiritual work, because instinctively you will run from it because it's threatening to the present structures. So your instinct, before you even think about it, will try to divert you from it. So when you talk about procrastination, it's more important for you to observe that which you are putting your time. If there are things you are making more of a priority, or if it's just avoiding the spiritual practice. And that will give you a vision of where you stand and how to proceed. Because if you are giving importance to something else, then you can observe the real values that are there present at work. If it is about materialism, possessions, attachments, what is it? Because knowing your cage is very important. Like someone wants to escape a prison, he has to have a knowledge about the prison so that he can find a gap, a way out. So all mistakes, all failures, they tend to reveal the script of your illusion. And as you observe it more and more, you'll learn from it and you become more able to go around it, to transcend it. So if you're giving if you're investing in other things, but you know that spiritual practices are more important, but still you're investing in your career or something like that, you will be able to observe the values which are there. And then, because time is not being wasted, you are using it according to what you think is best. And if by reason you have this vision that spiritual practices are more important, then you will have to make the effort to adjust. But if you look, oh, I'm just procrastinating, it doesn't take you anywhere. You'll continue like this. But if you look at it, oh, these are the values that I'm really upholding, different from what I think that I'm upholding. And this needs to change. And this attitude of change, when you see it, will come if you're a seeker of truth, of course. That is important to underline. And seekers of truth tend to make more or less the same decisions. Sometimes they can have some difficulties, but their decisions will come more or less in the same direction. And so do seekers of well-being. And they are opposite decisions. So what you're avoiding to undertake and where you're spending your time, this tells you a lot. And if, for example, you're not concentrating on anything important, you're just distracting yourself just for time to pass, you have to see why are you avoiding your spiritual practices, your spiritual path, your spiritual process. Why are you avoiding it? Is it because of fear? What is it? And you will only find out when you embrace intensity of spiritual work. I'm addictive to sex. No, I'm sure you're addicted to pleasure and for suffering. This is what's behind all addictions. That's all there is. You see, a spiritual life by opposite from a worldly life. A worldly life is just going through that river with eyes closed or eyes open, but not doing anything to get out from that river. So you're being taken. Time is being wasted and you're trapped in this continuous suffering that is only possible through duality. There must be pleasure so that suffering can be um, experienced. It's quite simple, actually, but it doesn't seem to be the case. If it wasn't for your pleasures, your sufferings wouldn't have the same impact. And like any addiction, you always need more and more and more. And you have to let go of that suffering pit in order to come back again there and have the same impact or even a higher impact. And you have to go to something which is better, even if it's bad, but better than that pit, so that coming back to it gives you the same feeling. So transcending samsara means moving beyond suffering, and that's the most difficult thing. For those who are able, through the intensity of their practice, to be face to face with the choice of continue to embrace their suffering or to let go of the suffering. Those who are able to reach this point see clearly that there is something in them that doesn't want to let go. And those mechanisms of suffering, they are very, but very, very, very important. They justify so many things, so many things. They are the biggest motivation in life. And it seems that everybody is running away from suffering, apparently. But as they say, the higher you go, the harder you will fall. So in this context, the higher your goals and your expectations for happiness, the harder the fall is possible and the experience of suffering. And this is what it is. And those who don't aspire for liberation, they don't even have this possibility. But those who aspire for liberation and know that there's something called liberation, look at what you're doing with your life. You're still investing in the same things because you're hooked, you're dependent, you're flowing with these structures that guarantee suffering. And to let go of suffering, it is something that will bring a lot of suffering. And there's the suffering that feeds your stock of suffering, because you have a stock of suffering, like a dark cloud that goes with you. And there's the suffering that is about liberating your stock of suffering. And as for the window of consciousness in terms of experience, as you are feeding this stock of suffering, it is going through the window of experience. It's being experienced. Suffering is being experienced. As you are releasing this, it will be experienced also, but it is emptying the stock. And usually this is a suffering which is lived as you abstract from the investments that feed these structures, that go after your dreams, your images of happiness. So not investing in your images of happiness will bring suffering, but it is a suffering that is releasing your stock, not feeding it. So, theoretically, it doesn't matter where you stand, what are your circumstances. If you intensify and persist, there's nothing that can stop you. And what usually stops you is yourself. You quit because suffering is more important. And even, or especially, in the spiritual path, there's this tendency of seekers, and the more they know it is difficult, the more it is, in a way, attractive for two reasons. One, because there's the promise of liberation from it. And two, and maybe more important, it's because there's a bigger potential for failure and suffering, more suffering. So, more or less, the mechanisms as you move more into delusion and as you try to come out from it, they are very similar. It is your motivations and what you do concretely that makes the difference. What kind of decisions you make. Not just the big decisions, small ones. Small ones. Big are important, yes, but the small ones are as important or even more important. And there are many, many more. So it's what you do that makes the difference. Because your illusion can feed on anything and it will try to eat the life of your spiritual process. Try to, if it cannot stop you from moving forward, it will twist the direction that you're going. Okay. If there are no more questions, so for today, that's it. Next satsang will be Wednesday, 9:30 in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. Until then, make the best use of your time. Make it real.